Hello everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of Hedonist Radio. This is your host, Sydney, and this episode I really just wanted to tell you a little bit about what the deal is with this project that I've started, and just letting me kind of play around with why Hedonist Radio, why the Hedonist Project, why am I doing this thing. And I also want to highlight a little bit of what I'm hoping this podcast will evolve into, although, being totally honest, I don't actually know where this is going to go, what it's going to turn into, and how far this is going to take me, so we will just have to wait and see. So, without further ado, let me tell you what the deal is with Hedonist Radio, or the Hedonist Project, same thing. If I'm being completely transparent, I feel that probably my entire life has led up to this project, which, in all honesty, I was not anticipating. I have a whole other job and career and project that I have going and business on that side of things that I invest a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into. Okay, so my big girl job, I am a minister and a full-time counselor. So that's what I do for my big girl job. But there's been this part of me ever since I even remember. It was the Sagittarius full moon back in, had to be June, when I had this download that this is actually the direction that I should be going. And so I've been sitting with this for a few months and finally pulling the trigger on it after, just kind of marinating with it for a long time. And one thing that I can tell you for certain is that pleasure and play and enjoyment has never been my strong suit. In part, this entire thing was kind of forged in the fact that I suck at having fun. It is not something that comes naturally or easily to me. So a little bit of background on my childhood, if you will, is that I was born into a family and lineage that is riddled with addiction, which basically means that everything fun is also dangerous. So that is something that really just poisoned the well for me. So as I started to get into adulthood, all of a sudden, everything that people would do for fun, I became terrified of, which is natural if you have a strong aversion to your addict parents, if that's something that really turns you off. And so, out of safety, I just ended up rejecting all the fun opportunities that came into my vicinity, or I would have meltdowns. So I feel like at this point in my life, or what ended up happening for me, was not that I needed to quote-unquote grow up, but rather I really needed to learn how to enjoy myself and how to play. So there were all these things that I just started waking up to. At a certain point, I just realized that I had drifted so far away from the things that actually brought me pleasure that it was like my life no longer had meaning. I actually didn't understand what the fuck I was doing, because there's just so much of me that deeply loves pleasure. Like, that's all I want. That's all I want to do, is indulge and be in a pleasurable state. Now, obviously, that's not something you can actually sustain. However, this has become a major practice for me, and it's something that I'm constantly trying to hook back into, because it's very easy for me to flip into all work, no play. I function very well in all work, no play. But the problem with that is it really makes you no fun, and it's just no way to live, is basically what I can tell you about that. So that's kind of where the Hedonist Project was born, was the fact that I was already needing to figure out how to dive into pleasure more and more, to the point where it's actually become a focal point of mine in a really big way, which I was not expecting. So this is what I would like to call my shadow self's playground. And I stand by that because, some of the things that really bring me a lot of pleasure are good books, hot baths, good weed, good sex, champagne brunches, saunas, any spa really, nice sweatpants, lingerie. I'll get to that in another episode because I have some beef with lingerie companies right now. Vibrators, charcuterie boards, all of the yumminess that life has to offer. One of my big, big, big things is that I do love the material world. Now, because I do spiritual work, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, minimalism is the path to happiness. False. Not in my world. I love the material world in every way, shape, and form. Anything I can indulge in, anything that makes me feel really good or just stimulates my senses, I'm all about it. I'm all over it. So this is a large part of my life, and it's something that I consider myself to be an uptight workaholic, no fun killjoy. Now, that's really extreme. None of my friends will agree with that, okay? They would say yes to the workaholism, but no to the fact that you're a killjoy. But it doesn't negate the fact that I feel as though I'm a killjoy. So a part of this entire journey for me, I guess, is the fact that I was, told constantly as a child that I was a killjoy, a ball and chain, and I was a naturally serious person. So having fun as an adult is something that really didn't click. Like I still to this day have a hard time playing sometimes. I'm playful. I have a good sense of humor, but doing things for pleasure was something I really had to get practiced at because it's something I crave so deeply, and it's something that is really important to me. It just so happens that all of the things that I love and enjoy happen to be taboo. Sex and weed, kind of still taboo. Kind of don't want to blast that out all over the place. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to withhold myself or prevent myself from actually expressing these things, because in reality, there's a lot of people who want to talk about sex and weed. It's just the reality, or good food, or massages, or whatever it is that I'm feeling indulgent in. For all of the people who are interested in astrology as much as I do, just a little bit of info. I do have Black Moon Lilith in the 8th house. I have my North Node in Scorpio in the 1st house. Shocking that I'm doing a podcast about sex and weed, all the taboo topics. And I also have Jupiter in the 2nd house in Sagittarius, which just makes me overly indulgent and wanting all the finer things in life and wanting to spend on pleasure. So a few things that I'm aiming to get at with this podcast, I suppose, is reviews of things, maybe talking about experiences. So pole dancing is one of the things that I really want to start doing, because I feel like I am kind of checked out of sexual energy sometimes, which is really hard for me. It makes me feel like my entire mojo is off. And I don't like that. And so I'm trying to figure out ways to stimulate that part of myself again, just because I've kind of been in a prison of work for so long. And so I'm basically just going to document all of that. I'll tell you guys stories, wild experiences, maybe do some strain reviews or random chats. I don't know what this is going to be, but I'm going to try a whole bunch of different things and see how it goes. Of course, I do have some really, really long-term plans, but for the time being, I'm just starting with the podcast. In summary, The things that I'm going to be talking about on this podcast are going to be very juicy, very sensual, very taboo, very focused on all of the things that I deeply, deeply love to experience in this lifetime. And hopefully you want to stick around and hear about all of the things that I come up with or share with you, or who knows. So thanks for tuning in while I figure this whole thing out and see what exactly I want this to turn into. Maybe I'll do some smoke and chats or something like that and have some fun with it. So until then, you can find me on Instagram at the Hedonist Project. And that's all that I've got for you today. Thanks for sticking around, and we will talk more soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.